This has been a bad week and a half for the Village of Forest. And sometimes when bad things happen, you see the silver lining. And what we've seen this past week and a half is our crew is a good group of men. And we are very, very grateful for them. And it's, without them, this could have been really bad. It's bad enough, but it could have been really bad.
Speak up a little bit,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
So to get things started, Jay's got some things to say, and then he's gonna have the guys show you what is involved with the pits and what goes wrong with the pits and what was wrong with our beeline this week, and he will take it from here.
Thank you, Dave. So, before we do start, I just want to give thanks to a couple people that have helped us this week, including Mayor Book and Council President Hastings. It wasn't just us three out there every day. These guys came out, helped us find some of our problems. Also, I want to thank Marty from Rural Water. He brought a camera out. We isolated what we thought was a problem on Beeline on Patterson. We all know how long Patterson is. Well, this camera only runs about 200 feet at a time. He came out 2 days and 200 feet at a time, searched this entire length of road. Crooks Excavating was contacted to come help us find the problem that in the location we thought we had. They dropped everything for us, they moved things around for us, and I'm very grateful that they were able to come out for this. Also want to thank Dairy Barn. They took care of us today. They knew we were out and about. They did feed us for the day, and I want to thank them for taking care of our guys. So the timeline of events, we all know back in about February, our system started having problems when we had the freeze. What happens is water gets into some of the parts, they freeze, and it doesn't allow them to work appropriately. So what we were having trouble with is finding the problem pits, finding the problem issues in the pits, and then as we're replacing them, we were kind of chasing our tail. By the time we'd get done with the line, we'd have to start back over. So that took a couple days until it warmed up. Well, then on Beeline, we started having more problems again. Couldn't get the vac to come all the way up like it should. We did everything we could to get it up with our knowledge. We contacted AirVac. AirVac gave us a couple of techniques to try out. However, they were the exact same thing we were already doing. Called them a couple times, asking for more support. And the best I got was, we have nothing else for you. Unfortunately, we weren't given the best service with our equipment here. However, Matt from AirVac did come out. He helped us locate a couple spots with a hearing device. That hearing device, he was able to find a louder noise in the pipes compared to the rest of it. So we couldn't confirm, but it was definitely an abnormality. And then when Rural Water came with their camera, we searched the area. We really couldn't find anything, but we knew the area was not correct. In the sense that according to the diagrams that we've been provided, show that the layout in that area is a lot different than what we found it to be. So we kept battling, we're out here every night. Eventually we made the decision that we're not gonna fix it. But what we are gonna do is make sure that people's sewage doesn't back up. So when we were out there for 16 hours a day, it wasn't actually fixing the problem, it was to make sure things didn't back up on the citizens. Until we got with Crooks Excavating to come out and check one of our areas. What we found was about 6 feet down, this 45 had busted. There's a hairline crack, and this little tiny crack is what caused every issue on every line. Again, contacted AirVac before all this to ask them, how do you find a leak on your system? I got nothing. Don't know how to tell you how to find one. So we, for a month, searched inch by inch, foot by foot, to find this little tiny crack. Crooks came in, fixed the problem appropriately, did it within half a day, and I am happy to say Beeline is up. Beeline is fixed, and now we are working on A, but I believe that's because we had it shut down while we were working on B. I do think we can get A line back up. I don't think it'll be much of an issue for the next couple of days.
Could you explain A and B?
So they're separated into different lines. A line is everything to the east of Gormley, B line is everything west of Gormley. So they are on separate systems. However, when you have a problem with one where it drags the vacuum down in one, it'll start causing problems throughout the whole system. So this thing being on B line can cause an issue on A line. So I'm gonna have the guys show you kind of what we deal with in the pits, kind of how they work, and some of the problems we've been having with them. And then before we're done, I'll let you know exactly how much those cost.
This is Joe Moore and Mark Shuck.
Hello.
These guys are heroes.
How you guys doing tonight? As Jay brought up earlier, this is a valve that is in every pit that we have. 137, roughly. This is a battle for us, daily. There's a lot of moving parts, and we call it a can, it's actually a valve. This valve, if you guys can see this, controls, this moves up and down. Supposed to. This one's stuck.
As you can see, that just this little area right here, the difference, it's less than an inch. But that causes these to stay open, which causes the pressure to go down, it causes backup.
Yes.
These, in the winter time especially, we were having a lot of problems, because this right here, this goes inside, and we get water inside. Now water freezes, and guess what? These won't go down. They get bound up, and that week that it was freezing out, we probably replaced about 30 of these. We were all over the place, and I know we were putting in a lot of time.
At $100 a piece at that. This
$101.85.
Thank you. For a little rubber piece, $101. 85 cents. We go this past week, I can't count how many of these we went through. Now, as I say that, this is a brand new repair kit. It's everything that goes inside this can. It's all brand new from AirVac.
But there are pieces that don't come in, like there's a spring in there, this don't come in there, those are the actual valve part of it.
Yeah, this bag is $75.19 for nothing. A couple washers and 2 nuts. Straight from AirVac.
There's a lot of things on these that can go wrong. There's a little seal right here, that if this is flat or something like that, you're gonna lose air. And over time, the firing, it will either tighten it down and it will make it flat and you'll lose air. This right here, if this isn't seated on there properly, it's not gonna sit in it too well, which these not as bad, but these right here is the number one thing why these are bad. And with just 2 of us, it is hard to keep up with it.
Yes.
It is extremely hard.
What goes wrong with them?
These, a lot of times, either water gets in them, or they freeze up,
Or they'll wrinkle.
or they'll wrinkle. And that will bring up another point is, I know a lot of people know, but a lot of people's houses in this town, why, you know how it rains and we're like, oh crap, the sewer's going down. A lot of people's houses here are putting their drainage into our sewer system, flat out. And all that water, you think about it, even half the houses, that is a lot of water that our system's not supposed to be taking. That is, I mean, there's a few that we know, after it rains, we're like, oh, we gotta go clean out this bit, because we know it ain't gonna fire because it just rained. Because if you go up, how a pit is set up, this is a controller, this is what controls it all. And this thing, I'll tell you right now, it is hard to rebuild these, there's so many little pieces in here, we gotta get.
$458.03.
Yeah, alright, 400, whatever.
$58.03.
And I'll show you, this is $500 for these little pieces, and I'll tell you right now, this is just some of them. But like this, we got these, we got a little dinky clip right there. 3 more of these little dinky washers. My hands are too big to even really show them.
What is the depth of those things that below the ground?
Oh,
What is the depth?
alright, there's 2 different pits.
I mean, you talking one of the machines, how far below that ground?
They're
is it?
about 3 feet. I mean, if you look at it when we
Why isn't there some kind of insulation to keep it from freezing?
that,
It's a fiberglass container. It's
There
a
is.
fiberglass
There is.
container. They're supposed to be insulated.
but they're not.
So since this isn't working, what is our next steps? What are we looking
I-
at?
So
Just for replacing like basically one and upkeeping it, it's over $1,000. You're
Yeah,
looking at-
So we will get to all that, we just wanna demonstrate what we have going on, I will make sure we hit that, and then Wessler, who is helping us with a lot of the issues we have, they'll go into more depth. And then if you have any other questions, we will all answer them for you.
Yeah, cause obviously the system's not working.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's-
we're here to show you why. That's what we're.
Have you talked with the guy from McGuffey? He rebuilds those? He has a system that he rebuilds those,
Yeah, we rebuild them ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do.
and it still costs $500?
For
Yeah.
the parts, yes.
Yeah, just this bag. That's how much it costs.
Just for that bag, I mean,
Just this
I'm
bag.
adding up
If you
stuff
buy one of
for
those brand new,
$2,000.
they're extremely expensive.
Well, the controller's $458.
$458.35.
And that has 3 different air pockets in it because you guys probably know this is a vac system. This is where your vac line comes in. That actually controls this going up and down. This one right here, and this is a big one, why the rain and all that, because your pit, it's down here. The water, if you get up to the top, it will not fire. Like if it's too full, and I know we're all having it. It has to come up, and then this will tell it, hey, you got a fire. This one will bring in the air from down there too, atmospheric air, and then it'll fire. But like when it rains a whole lot and why we have problems, and everybody's gutters hooked up to it, all the water comes in there at once. So that's why they don't like the fire.
That's how it sits on the can, in the pit. With hoses coming off of it, your back line, air line.
And
That's how it'll sit in your pit.
with just 2 of us, it's rough rebuilding these, especially, I mean, it just is.
How
I
much
know,
are you,
like,
how much are you spending a year to maintain it? The whole system?
So it depends on how bad the season is. I don't have those numbers, fiscal officer in here with those numbers, but it depends on the year.
Got a
And I'm
rough-
sure
rough
we've spent
estimate?
more this year than we have previous years.
So are there any plans to check homeowners' properties to see what's running into the system and have that corrected?
So I will get to that. Wessler might have the answer for that. We'll just keep moving down the line on it.
if anybody has questions about it, I'll.
Yeah, we just here to
Yeah, if
explain.
you have questions, we'll have a Q&A session at the end,
Yeah.
and so these guys can
But
do
we're,
their thing.
me and Mark are trying our best to
Yeah.
keep you guys running.
I know our wives are mad at us right now.
You guys are doing amazing, seriously though, I mean, you guys are doing amazing. You're working long hours, day in
It
and day
is.
out.
I mean-
We do appreciate it, so I hope you don't take it personal when we do ask questions, because we do see the
Here's the
work
thing,
you're
we-
putting in.
We both do live in town, so we know what it's like. I live on the vac system, so I completely get it. You know, and honestly, if you hear something coming out of the pit, go ahead and let us know. I mean, if it like won't stop, call, and then we'll be right down there to check it out. That's all right.
Yeah, so with all that being said,
Alright, thank you, Mark and Joe.
thank you, Dave.
So, also also another issue which we have experienced here since we've been working on it. Just so you all know, we can't run any water in the toilets here at the all-weather pavilion at this time. There is a pit out here that has completely collapsed. These pits are made out of fiberglass casing. The top tank sits about 3 to 4 feet from the ground. Underneath that, just think of it as your at-home garbage can underneath of it. That's where everything's collected, and then on top is this stuff that then pumps it and takes it down the line. What we're also seeing is those bottom fiberglass tanks are starting to crack. They're 21 years old. Every time they fire and then they shut off, they flex. That's why they made them out of fiberglass. So after about 20, 21 years of flexing, we believe that these tanks are cracking. Like I said, we just found an all collapsed one. It is completely filled with stone, about 4 foot of stone. It shouldn't be that way. So nobody really knows what we're looking at through the system in everybody's pits. If they're all intact or if they are starting to crack. I believe that might also be where we're getting our groundwater after a freeze, after it rains. And it's just really taxing on the system. Some of the numbers I have, so I have to replace that pit up there from bottom to top, and that's gonna cost $5,734.72. That is just for the encasement. When I reached out to AirVac asking, how do we fix our system? How do we fix our pits? The guy actually told me, I'll send you something. 2 days later in the mail, I received a little pamphlet for new pits, new controllers, and new valves. I was like, that's not gonna solve my problem right now. That doesn't help me troubleshoot anything. You just wanna make a sale. I don't like it. I did get a little upset with them, but they continued to give me some numbers because these are things I have ordered. The controllers again are $458.35, just to have a service tech out here to help me troubleshoot. Mind you, he's not gonna fix it. He's gonna tell me how to fix it or tell me how he thinks I should fix it. Just to have a guy come out here from Indiana to tell me that, $1,800. The pumps we have at the back station use a synthetic blend oil that we have to buy off of AirVac. Otherwise, if the pump blows, we don't get no warranty. And that is $361.98 for 5 gallons. The sewage pump that we just bought at the end of last year was $11,844. We have to buy from AirVac because they run the system. We can't go to Bush, who makes the pump, and ask for it directly. We have to go through AirVac. The valves that he's showing here, these blue ones, $1,500 just for one. The rebuild kits for them are $75, and those rubber diaphragms are $101. I did the math, and to replace all the pits, just the casings, we would be looking at $768,000. To replace just the controllers, $61,000, all valves, $203. In grand total, just the pits alone, if we were to replace them, we're looking at $1,032,881. This does not include everything else we've put into them. This does not include the station. This does not include the overtime. This does not include us being here day after day taking care of it. Wesley's going to talk here in a second, and what we've been working on is how to take care of this. They are going to propose in a couple months some numbers for a gravity system, for a low pressure system, or if we decide we want to stick with AirVac. I can already guarantee you, when they give me the numbers, AirVac's going to be cheaper. But in 10 to 20 years from now, Council, what's going to be cheaper? So, with that being said, I'm going to urge whoever's on council that when these numbers get brought up, let's not take the cheap route. Let's do what we need to do. Myself and Lester will work on grants, work on funding. It is going to cost money. And I'm sorry to say this generation may not see the better outcome of it, but we're looking down the line. The next generation is going to benefit from this. We are not going to let this go. And with that, Wessler, if you have anything to say to this, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Alright, My name is Ben Schrader. I'm a project manager with Westler Engineering. With me today is Vinny. He works out of our Grove City office. He went to school here in Ohio Northern. He worked in our Buffalo office for a little bit before he joined another one of our engineers in Grove City. But he's been helping me a lot on the day-to-day preliminary design and the evaluations going on in the collection system as well as the lagoons. And we also have Eric Davis. He's our business development rep. He makes the rounds, does a lot of just the day-to-day things and just about the odds and ends for our office. So we all thought it was important to show up today to just kind of help support Jay, the council, and Dave. We started here last June to kind of do a complete evaluation of the wastewater system. The AirVac, as Jay mentioned, for the east side of the town, we are looking at rehabilitation, working with AirVac. What is it going to take to get this system up and running again? So we don't have any numbers back from AirVac. They're working on the improvements at the central vac station. All the stuff that Jay mentioned here this evening is stuff that AirVac's not going to look into. AirVac's approach, from what I've gathered so far, is a phased approach. Let's fix what we know is broken, then let's reevaluate the system, and then kind of go phase by phase. So phase one is already looking at a complete overhaul of the central vac station, replacing vac pumps, replacing sewage pumps, any kind of piping modifications, electrical control panels. It's all outdated at the central vac station. Being outdated, you run more power, things wear down faster. They have made a lot of improvements for their vac pumps and the control panels that can save power, save consumption, and hopefully last longer. Like the innovation occurs in 20 years. So that's where they recommended to start. But then they also want to see, okay, we make all these improvements there, let's reevaluate the system. What Jay is already finding is that there's more stuff in the system that needs replaced and repaired than just the central vac station. Unfortunately, to go through the day-to-day stuff that you guys do, it's hard, right? But that is their approach. And as Jay mentioned, I can tell you right now, it is going to be by far the cheapest option for the village at the moment. It might be the cheapest option for the next 10 or 20 years. However, our job is to try to evaluate it and try and go beyond that and try and give you the best numbers right now. To replace the AirVac system, you're going to be replacing about 6 miles of sewer pipe. Whether it's a low pressure system or a gravity system, 6 miles is a lot of pipe. AirVac's already got the equipment here, and that's why it's going to be cheaper. I don't have the numbers today with me. We've just kind of started getting numbers back on the low pressure system. Vinny and I are trying to do a preliminary design on the gravity system. We're just not there yet to provide you the hard numbers, but in a couple of months, when our big evaluation, our big report is due, it will be made public for everyone to know exactly what it's going to cost to replace with either a low pressure system or a gravity system.
What's the difference between a low pressure system and a gravity system, Ben?
Gravity system is what you have on the west side of town. You've got manholes and everything flows by gravity to a lift station, which then pumps it up to the lagoons. Right now you're looking at either 1, maybe 2 lift stations on the east side of town just to pump it to the west side of town. And then of course you have a series of connecting pipes and manholes to get it to the 1 or 2 lift stations to pump it over. Low pressure system, what that is going to entail is smaller diameter pipe, and you're going to have a grinder station at each house on the east side of town. Every house will have to provide a little bit of power to run a grinder pump, and all those grinder pumps together will pump the sewage to the west side of town. Typically, low pressure systems are cheaper than gravity, just because for gravity, it's all got to be open cut. You've got to get excavators in, you've got a lot of manholes, you got to completely open up roadways, completely open up the earth. With low pressure systems, a lot of it is trenchless. It's you bring in drilling machines and you can drill these smaller diameter pipes, 2 to 4 to 6 inches, and you can drill that through the ground. Versus with gravity, you're looking at 6, 8, or 10-inch pipes that you've now got to lay. Contractors have to constantly measure to make sure you got proper grade on the gravity system. Low pressure systems, it doesn't matter. They can go up and down a little bit.
Which one's more efficient?
that's part of our evaluation. It kind of depends on how you look at it. There's pros and cons to all of these systems. There's pros to an AirVac system. As you all can see, you all know what the cons are. There's still pros and cons with gravity and low pressure systems as well. Some of the big cons with low pressure systems, you've got pumps at each house. If that's the path, once we evaluate everything, the numbers come through, and the village is like, well, let's go with a low pressure system. There's going to be a discussion between the public and the council who maintains those pumps. Some areas it's on the homeowner to maintain those pumps. Other areas it's on the council and the village to maintain those pumps. So there's going to be a collection series of meetings, who pays for what when it comes to those individual grinder units. And like I said, there's power. Right now, the preliminary number for the east side is 344 grinder stations. And so each of one of those has a cost. And then these pumps last anywhere from probably 3 to 8 years, 10 years. It just depends on who lives where and what you flush down your own toilets and down your shower drains. But when those pumps go bad, they cost anywhere, they probably cost, I don't know, $2,000 to $3,000 each. And so again, who covers that pump cost? The village or the homeowners? And so that's probably the drawback to the low pressure system. There are pluses, but then gravity systems, if it's a brand new gravity system and it's installed correctly, hopefully you don't have to touch that for 20 to 30 years. And then even at that point, it could still be in great shape depending on who installed it and how everything's holding up. So.
Ben, when you guys did the search through our gravity side, how did it look?
So 20 years ago when this AirVac system was installed, this project started because of a big push from the OEPA and the state to separate storm water and sanitary water. I believe the village started separating on the west. So they separated, you now have a storm system and a sanitary system. But then for some reason the council and the citizens at that time elected for the east side, instead of creating a separate storm and sanitary system, they thought the AirVac system would be a good option. But on the west side, that system is for most of it's about 20 years old, 25 years old. When we televised the system, it looked pretty good, as we would expect it to look after only 20 to 25 years. A lot of debris is building up. They need to be flushed. That's part of a general maintenance program. The town has a vac truck. I think you have a jetter truck as well, right? So you have the equipment to properly maintain it. And that's just flush out the stone, flush out all the little debris. But from what we can see from the public side of things, the system looks good. Looks very good. As Jay mentioned about grants. If grants and money is available, it would be there, right? Unfortunately, it is a process to go through grant programs, to talk through the different funding agencies. It just takes time. You can't just go and ask for money unless if you want a loan. If you want, if you want a project done now, you can always go for a loan and have it done now. Unfortunately,
are we looking at a national crisis that we can't have a sewer system that's not working, and it's crashing fast. I've been here for 2 years, and it's just going downhill faster and faster. Isn't there a way to get a national crisis or something like that to help fund that?
So there are multiple ways for us to go about this. I think me and Ben have been working on something, and Ben has explained something to me. He might be able to explain it better, but it makes more sense for the size of the village that we are in order to be financially stable and okay to handle this. Ben, if you wanna explain the process if we keep everything together,
yep.
Or if we move this up and say start it next week.
Yes, so because it's not just the AirVac system, there's issues with some of the lift stations, which it has been a grant that was awarded 3 or 4 years ago, where there's still some funds for those lift station improvements are moving forward. But there's also needs to be a big project out at the lagoons. They're full of sludge. The OEPA is initiating a lot tighter effluent limits. Effluent is what leaves your lagoons into the public environmental waterways. You're going to have much tighter limits come 2029. It was going to be enacted here at this latest cycle, this 2024. However, in working with Dave and, the former administrator Sean, we met with the OEPA, we got it pushed off to the next permit renewal. But in the meantime, the EPA has the village under a schedule of compliance. They need to make this, all these improvements out of the lagoons in order to meet their next permit. So that's what we are now. And we're doing a complete system evaluation. From a funding perspective, the OEPA has a funding arm, referred to as DFA and OWDA. A lot of acronyms, and it's gonna get very confusing for Ohio because there's multiple different avenues that Ohio has funding for. But we are gonna look at all of them. In order to do that, we need to have a report. Whenever you take it to a funding agency, they wanna know what is your problem, what's the financial situation of the village, what are the dynamics of the village, and then of course, now that we know what your problem is, how do you propose to fix it? And we just need this report in order to give to all the funding agencies so they can review it, come up with their own determination analysis, and then they can start preparing funding packages.
And we're working on that, right?
And we are working on that right now. That in 2 months, that's when our report is due to the village, so we can submit it to OEPA and submit it to Army Corps, submit it to the state. Pretty much anyone, any ranking agency that we know of, can think of, they will see this report. And the goal is to present everything as one giant project, and that is to show all these funding agencies, all the issues that you have going on in your village, out of the lagoons, your lift station, the collection system, the AirVac system, everything. The concern is if we try to accelerate, let's say, the village is committed to replacing the AirVac system with a gravity or low pressure system, right? You can go to the bank today, tomorrow, next week, get yourself a loan, so we can start design here in a few weeks. It'll take 6 months for a design, and then we have to bid it out to a contractor, and you can start construction at some point next year. The problem with that is it's not enough time for funding agencies to really assemble funding packages, and you'll be paying it all through loan. By keeping the projects together and going through the normal funding paths, these agencies need to plan for it. And unfortunately, planning just takes years. If they had the money available, they'd just give it out, but they don't. The state lawmakers need a couple of years to write it into their bill so they can fund the OEPA, so they can fund H2 Ohio, another funding arm of the government. And in order to do that, they need to plan for it. And that's what, again, the report will be done this year, it'll be submitted, and then hopefully they will review it. Under the schedule of compliance, we have to roll over into design, start working on some of this stuff in advance. But hopefully by 2027, 2028 is when construction will start. Hopefully there's gonna be all these funding divisions from OEPA, OWDA, Army Corps, H2 Ohio. Hopefully something will materialize, but at this point, we just don't have the answers right now. And that's what we're trying to figure out.
So for 3 more years, we have to watch our system crash and get worse before anything is done.
So obviously, like, I can't go out and fix it right now. I mean, like he even said, if we went out and got a loan to set up the bidding process, get it, anything done, it's gonna take time. And unfortunately, years past, prior to even myself, this was just neglected.
I'm from a small town, sir. And we put in we brought in water from Bowling Green 20 miles away and just attached on $50 until the whole thing was paid off through our water system.
Well, then you have them call me. If they call me and they say they can get this done and it costs me $50, I'll do it.
It was every single person that paid water, it was $50 added onto their bill. Isn't there something or a resource that we can try to figure out what we can do that way to get things started, to get things done? Because you're watching and it's only gonna crash even farther and farther, and all 3 of you guys have said it. For it to, for us to have water, for us not to be like Flint where you can't drink your water, where it's completely like crashed.
Well, this is just sewer.
It's backing
This
up.
isn't water.
It's backing up into people's houses. Their toilets are overflowing. They're having.
We did not have that issue during this.
Have you not watched Facebook? Have you not got on our sites and have said, oh, well, That's why our toilets are overflowing and we can't stop it. I was at work and here's the water's coming
Man,
out
I
through our
haven't seen
toilets.
anything, cause I've been out in the pits, the only thing I get are the phone calls from the people that say, hey, something's wrong, and then we come and take care of it.
It's on there all the time, sir.
They don't have time to look at Facebook, honey.
I haven't
He's just
seen-
doing it.
I
you know?
call them
That's
too,
all
but
the
I've never
time.
seen anybody complain about it flowing
It
in
is,
their house.
it is.
Here's one
Yeah.
thing that if you've lived here for a couple of years, I'll tell you right now, every year between about February and March, it crashes. Every year, it's been like that since I've known it. Yeah, it's the rain. Normally, summertime and even in the middle of winter, normally we're pretty good. It's, the big bulk of it is about those months.
There
'Cause
wasn't
I even told
problems
them when-
between April and February.
You
All
what?
winter, all summer, all fall, it was fine.
That's what I'm saying, is normally we got about a month and a half that it's crap. But then, normally the summertime, you know, it's fine, it's just those months.
And unfortunately, this is, I mean, I've only been here a year, and I've done everything I can to try to make this better. Unfortunately, I can't just snap my fingers and
We
fix it.
understand that, but our system, our sewage system is crap.
Yes.
And they're saying that we've gotta wait, what, another 2-3 years before we even can start on it?
If
I
we wanna,
think the steps that we're gonna be taking in the immediate future are remediation for the pits, the controllers, and the valves. Those are our problem areas. That's where we're gonna focus on maintaining the system to keep it afloat until the final solution, comes down the road. And that's our only alternative at this point, is to maintain them, to keep the system afloat, and do the best that we can, and these guys do it every day. It's an everyday thing for them. And, that's the strategy, the only strategy that we have at this point, till we can get a final solution, whether it be a gravity system or something else.
So for Wessler, you're saying 2 or 3 years, is that 2 or 3 years for any of the systems that you are talking about? So like whatever, if you do the low pressure or the gravity or the AirVac, you're still looking at 2 to 3 years regardless. And then is there additional time if you choose one of the other options, like these ones, this is gonna take longer? Or is it pretty even, regardless of which one you choose?
Construction, like I said, another reason why AirVac would be the fastest is because the infrastructure is already in the ground.
Right.
It's already there, it's just replace and rehab what you have. And if you want to talk about timelines, the construction timeline for low pressure tends to be a little bit faster because it's trenchless. You drill and then you can just back out where you need to make connections and you're good to go. Gravity systems for 6 miles it'll take it about a year and a half to construct something like that.
And how long did you say the grinder pumps lasted?
I think they probably warranty them for 1 or 2 years.
Oh, wow.
But of course, naturally, they should last 3 to 4, but again, it all depends on
Your
how much you
usage?
use it, what do you flush down the toilets. They will say they've seen replacements after 2 years. They will also say they've had grinder pumps in the ground for 8 years or more, right? And that's what it is.
So you're kind of tacking on that $2,000 to $3,000, you know, as
Yep.
a personal outlay with that low.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And like I said, going back to the schedule, the schedule that we're on now is to maximize the savings for the town and the village. And that's to maximize principal forgiveness from OEPA, to maximize potential grants, allowing your state senator, the governor's funding division of H2 Ohio for them to fund these programs. Because otherwise, like I said, to replace 6 miles of sewer, to construct lift stations, or to purchase all these grinder units, it's gonna be I don't know what those numbers are, but it's gonna be a whole lot more than $1 million. And to pay that out of pocket, if you want to accelerate, there are ways to accelerate it. Like I said, you could start construction on a low pressure gravity system next year. The problem is, it's gonna come out of a loan, because there's gonna be no grant no principal forgiveness, and we're talking multiple millions of dollars to construct and design.
The one thing that I'll put on top of that is we all know that everybody's already complaining about water going up,
and sewer going up, we'd be no rush. If we can get a loan, that would, as she said, if you add an extra $50 on it, nobody in this town would want that.
No, you need to wait for the money.
Everybody would be.
I mean, we're still paying on our old system, nobody's
Exactly.
addressing that, we've only been paying on it for 21 years, I believe it was a 70-year loan.
No,
Was, it wasn't, what was it?
30 years was the longest
30.
one.
30,
We
so we've
still
got
owe
9
$1
years.
million on it.
We still owe $1 million.
They they did it in 4 phases,
Perfect.
and 1 and 2 are paid off, but we still owe on 3 and 4. So,
Do you know what those
the
numbers are,
last one
Loretta?
would be, paid off in 2030.
So we would essentially be paying 2 systems.
Yeah.
So
Have you,
what, I know you guys have figures, I know you don't have exact figures, but a gravity system potentially, I mean, we're gonna be tearing up roads, but gravity's the best. I live on the west end, I mean, you can't go wrong with gravity. But like, what is that million speaking? I mean, everyone acts like if you guys got 227,000, that's a drop in the bucket when we're talking about sewer costs. I keep seeing that figure over and over on Facebook. $227,000 does nothing for our sewer. So I think people need to know what the millions are that we're actually looking at for new systems, because people have no concept. And the grant money, again, is not guaranteed. Like he said, it has to be worked in. Everyone says, get a grant, get a grant, get a grant. It's not readily there. This isn't gonna happen in the next year regardless. If you make an emergency proclamation right now, so it doesn't do us any good to sit here and scream at people that did not create this problem, that are trying to fix it. But we do need to think about, we are taxed to the max the way it is as residents. Some people cannot afford their water bills right now, literally. We know rates are already going to be going up because we haven't been continually raising our rates to make any type of money. So what does this look like as a taxpayer or as a citizen paying these rates if we don't get grants? Worst case scenario, what does it look like?
So we don't have the numbers yet, that's still what they're kind of working on.
What's the ballpark? But ballpark, what's a gravity system gonna cost us ballpark?
So I have no definitive number. I mean, he doesn't either. They're doing a report because you can't just base it off of somebody else. Like, we're our own village, because obviously when they go to put this in, they're gonna have to tear stuff out too. They're gonna have to move stuff. They're gonna find stuff that they didn't know was there. So we can't put a number on it. They're working on the
But it's
ballpark,
gonna be millions.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask my opinion, I'm gonna say it's gonna be somewhere around 10,
Yeah.
if not more.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the grants, okay, like the 239,000 we got to revitalize our lift stations.
Right.
So they do have grants that are more than that. I mean, I've seen some that have gone all the way up to 10 million.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think we would get 10 million to pay for the whole project, but I mean, there's a bunch of different funding agencies out there, a bunch of,
But I don't think people understand, you literally will be taking the risk. You hope the grant funding comes through, but if you guys take out a loan, you are taking the risk. I mean,
yeah, if
for
we move
your
now and take a
citizens,
loan,
if it doesn't come
That's
through,
it.
ultimately, it's coming out of their pockets.
and that's why we're taking the time, we wanna do it right.
Right.
Because I'm not from here, I wasn't here when they put this in. If you ask me, they made a mistake. I don't think this was the appropriate way to go. I think they rushed it because they liked the number. I wanna do it right. Everything I've done since
Yeah, but
I've
it's
been
not
here.
your bill.
What's that?
It's not your bill.
I know,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm worried about it. I care more about what you guys are paying than what's gonna happen with me on this. Because if I spend all the money and then you guys leave town, what am I here for? I ain't gonna get paid.
Well, I just wanted the conversation that the citizens know, if the funding doesn't come through, it will be coming out of their pocket. So when they're here having these conversations, they're hard conversations, and absolutely something has to happen here.
Yeah, and if you heard me before, this generation's not gonna see the good part of this.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the next one.
Yeah. If the funding doesn't come
I
through,
can't
don't
even
want people
explain the
upset with you
fact
guys.
that how this happened and why it's gonna be like this. All I can say is after, I don't know, 10, 20 years of however this went, right here, right now, is where we're fixing it.
Are you actively seeking like the gentleman said, that you're talking to our senators, you're talking to people who are involved in the grant process, having somebody lobby for you. I mean, are you, as a mayor and an administrator, actually building those relationships, because it makes a difference?
Yes, so I haven't gone as far as the state. I have to start at my local, which I've reached out to Mark Dahl. Mark Dahl has reached out to these guys. We're starting local. Because obviously the county has talked about this and said that they're gonna help where they can, whether it be funding or whether it be with some expertise or knowledge. And then all we can do is go from there.
Well, I encourage you to reach out to the senators and start building relationships now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it makes a difference.
Well,
Oh,
they'll build it
absolutely.
into their legislation.
However, I don't think he's gonna just invite me over. I gotta make the relationship to him. I'm sure he's not gonna answer
Carpe
the
diem.
phone.
Carpe diem, it's never too late to get started on it.
Or your residents could also, we could also write letters and emails to our senators as well, requesting help.
Absolutely.
So
I think
Jan,
when we know what it's
whatever
gonna
we-
cost and we've got more things in place, then we can go out. You can't go to them and say, well, we might need this much, and we might need this much.
Again,
We need to know what.
it's
we
all
don't know
a
what
step.
system
You
we're
have to
gonna do.
complete something before
Give us
moving
some
on to the
time.
next. And again, Westler, in a couple months, will have this report. This report is essentially gonna be our Bible for this. This is what we are gonna gospel to the people that have money, the people that can provide funding. This book is gonna give us the words that we need to get what we're looking for. And I know they've been working on it very hard. Just last week, I think I called you at 8 o'clock at night, just to see what was going on. Just to see where we were, see what we could get. I mean, I don't know too many people that work for an engineer firm that's gonna answer my phone call at 8 o'clock. So I definitely thank these guys, and I know these guys are doing right by us.
So Jay, I have a question. I know this doesn't fall on you because you haven't been here, but I remember when we had decided to do this system, they were told on multiple levels that they shouldn't do it, but they did. But was there a maintenance program put in place, like to extend, like to keep it running more? And if we would choose the AirVac system again, because the structures are already there, if there is a maintenance program, if that maintenance program would be done, would it, because I'm sure it hasn't been in the last 20 years, because I know who's been in charge, but, would that extend it longer than where we've had this AirVac system?
So I will answer this, and then I wanna give it back to Ben, because I do wanna keep this moving, and then that way we can fully get into the questions. Yes, there is a maintenance program. Have we been following it since I've been here? Yes. At the vac plant, there's a maintenance schedule on what to do with the pumps, how often we have to check them, how often we have to change the oil in the pumps, how often we have to clean out certain parts in there, how often we have to replace valves. Really the only maintenance out in the pit is this stuff right here. When it stops working, you replace it. There's really nothing else you can do. That's pretty much the maintenance program. With AirVac, for like the lines, like the thing we just repaired today, again, they have nothing. We put a camera in this and I couldn't even find this. This was partly luck. They don't have anything for us. And the biggest thing with this, I have no help. The manufacturer is not giving me the amount of help anybody else can. With the grant we just got, I called Crown Lieben yesterday. He was out at 10:30 today. That's magnificent. Those are the people I wanna work with and know that even if you are paying them more money, what kind of customer service are you getting? What kind of troubleshooting help are you getting? I don't know about you, but when I go to a restaurant and the waitress is amazing, I tip more because I appreciate that you give me the time of day when I need it. Does that answer that a little bit?
Yeah, just when you're thinking about options of which system, like, is there a way to keep an AirVac system longer than 20 years? Or are we just basically up in the air when it goes bad?
There's some things people neglected, I'll tell you right now, like our valves, they're full of mud. So that hurts us real bad. I mean, yeah, if the maintenance was kept up a little better, okay, but like, we'll say A-line, we have no valves that work on A-line. So we're literally chasing 60 pits.
Mind you, the valves he's talking about are in the road, not the blue ones on here, so when I say we take care of these ones,
Yeah, no,
those aren't the ones.
no, I'm talking about in the roads where you know how you got a water leak, you can shut off the valve so they can replace the line. The AirVac, I think, what do we have, Jay? Probably 4 that work total at the most.
4 or 5, and unfortunately, those are supposed to be our best friends. Those are, if we have a problem, we shut those off, and that kinda tells us the area. That's why A line's usually a nightmare. B line not so much, cause we can't shut things off. It's just a matter of paying somebody to fix the valves now.
Ben?
To answer some of your questions, yes, there have been innovations, mostly on the pump side of things. There is a new vacuum style pump that is significantly more efficient and lasts longer than the ones you currently have. There are new sewage pumps available. Talking to AirVac, the town is still under an older style, which has a specific type of mechanical fitting to connect to your existing piping. So I believe, Jay, when you said the one sewage pump went down, you needed a special pump that took 6 or so months to get here.
Yes.
There's other pumps out there, but then again, you run into issues of this is AirVac system. If you replace stuff that's not approved by AirVac, you run the risk of them not providing the support because now you're tampering with their system. Again, those are discussions that if you stick with AirVac, you should bring up, say, hey, are there other pumps available? If this goes down, we can't afford 6 months to wait for another one. If the vacuum pump goes down, you can't wait this long. Are there other options available? Are there temporary means? Unfortunately, in this area, this part of the United States, there's not that many AirVac systems out there. As far as I know, there's only about 3 or 4 in Ohio and Indiana that I know of. A couple more maybe in Michigan, but if you go down south, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, there's quite a few of them and they work just fine. However, they don't have freezing down there. In order to make all the improvements that you guys are struggling with canisters freezing, valves freezing, you're going to pay the money to, right now you have all these lids that are not insulated. You need the insulated lids. You need to replace all that and beef them up a little bit more. Is that going to solve your freezing problem? I have no idea. It should certainly help, but we don't know. And that's part of the phased approach that AirVac wants to take. And yeah, it's going to be the cheapest option again up front. Fix this. We know this is broken. This needs replaced. Let's repair it. Then let's see what happens. A year will go by. Oh, we're seeing all these other issues. All right, let's tackle those other issues. Let's do a full replacement of all your pits, all your canisters. And I question, yeah, that's going to be your cheapest option, but you want to take the chances of we're going to replace it. Is it going to work?
So their
Is it
bid's
gonna
not
last
gonna
10
include
years?
these systems,
No.
not replacing all the parts, you're
Nope.
just.
Nope. Again, these are all the decisions in our report in a couple months where we're gonna sit down with the council and Jay, and we're gonna give you, these are the options, this is what we found. This is the approach from AirVac, or here's the total replacement cost for a low pressure system or a gravity system, and then those are the decisions. Unfortunately, we still won't know what grants are available, what principal forgiveness is out there. But we'll know more in 2 months when the report's done. When we get all the pricing in, once we finish our preliminary design, and then we'll be back here probably in this building to present it to the public. And probably, I don't know, it's up to you on how you wanna handle it. You can have it up to a village vote on the certain path. We'll make our pitch for keep AirVac, here's the low pressure system, here's a gravity system, and ultimately it's up for the village to decide.
Now, you're talking a lot about the at home, your pipes, but, what about the treatment? I mean, we've got 2 lagoons that are full. I mean, that's a couple $1 million just to clean those out. So when you're talking about your numbers, are you talking about having another lagoon put in? I mean, that's your ultimate, you're keeping that system. How are you gonna maintain that system? And, I know Triumph is a issue because they're pumping into the lagoons and, so it's like, there's more than just the pipes that are the issue. It goes much further, and kind of like what the one lady said is that, yes, this is a sewer discussion, but, at the end of the day, the quality of services that are rendered are bigger than just fixing the pipe.
That is correct. Yeah, the lagoon is a whole nother project in and of itself, and that's where our approach of trying to keep everything together, show all these funding agencies, this is the challenge that the village is facing. If you start breaking parts out now, it might be hard for funding agencies who receive maybe, who knows, hundreds of applications for grants throughout the entire state that they review. And they might see 2 or 3 for forests. Well, I can tell you the city of Columbus probably submits hundreds of their own projects for grants and principal forgiveness and all that stuff too. How does forest stand out? And that's where keeping it together, going through the normal funding path, reaching out to your state reps, the county economic development, anybody that is willing to hear at least the issues right now, and keeping the project together is, I think it's gonna score better. It's gonna look more appealing from a funding standpoint. And
But you are talking about having the lagoons in this package.
In that package.
Okay.
Yep. And out of the lagoons, just to give you an update, you need to, if you wanna keep them, you gotta dredge them, and it's gonna be, again, we did get some pricing, we're reaching out to a few people, but a couple million, $3 million just to dredge.
And they're
But we're
full,
also-
like they're full, they're topped
full.
out.
They're full.
Yeah.
There's one spot,
There's an island.
You can see how high it is, it's up past the water.
Yeah.
line.
So that means there's no treatment involved. The water that goes in there is not, you don't have your bacteria cycling, you know, it's pretty much.
Two of those work.
Huh?
I mean, those work most of the time. Our aerators that are out there, is that what you're talking about?
Well, I'm saying if your lagoon's full, it's not working. So that's where I think the OEPA comes in and says.
Are not working at 100%. However, we have no violations. We haven't had any issues. We have talked to the EPA to come out and double check some of our stuff and talk about other plans for our lagoons. As far as I am aware, we have not had any violations. I can guarantee
You're on a
this last
watch.
6 months.
But you're on a watch?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say, so they changed our numbers, allowing us for a higher number, because the numbers they were gonna give us, we weren't gonna match.
Right.
But that's where this comes in, and actually by the EPA telling us, hey, you have a problem, that helps us with the funding.
Yeah, I'm just saying, my dad was in wastewater. Your lagoons are full. They're not working optimally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, in your scheme of things, when do the lagoons get dredged? Is that earlier? Is that at the end?
The schedule compliance is not for the AirVac, that's for the lagoons. You have to have the lagoons up and running by the next permit, which is 2029, is when that new permit will come in.
With the higher numbers?
Yes, with the much tighter, more restricted numbers that you have to hit on the backside. And our evaluation out there, again, is if you wanna keep the lagoons, which initially that's what you have, and the village has expressed a desire to keep them. So we're gonna be looking at dredging, potentially deepening, potentially adding a third cell. Earthwork is very expensive. It's kind of similar to the gravity system. When you have to move earth, it's expensive. And then there's lagoon treatment systems out there that we're evaluating. We're also comparing those against a mechanical plant. Again, pros and cons. Lagoons don't have a whole lot of maintenance when they're dredged and operating efficiently. There's very little maintenance out of lagoons, but if you want to switch to a mechanical plant, which as of right now, we don't have those numbers yet, but it may be more, cost effective to go to a mechanical plant because now you're not dredging, dewatering, digging as much as you would a 2 5-acre lagoons. But again, mechanical plants, you've got pumps, you've got more blowers, you've got more day-to-day maintenance out of those mechanical plants. And again, our report in 2 months will detail, hopefully O&M costs, construction costs, design costs, for the village ultimately to make that decision. You'll have decisions out of the lagoon, multiple alternatives to evaluate at the lagoons, and you'll have multiple alternatives for the collection system on how to move forward.
Do you know how often you have to dredge a lagoon?
Depends on the village.
Do we have a high, is there a high rate here? I guess the amount that you're putting in.
As in, do we know what your loadings are? Your loadings as a village are very normal for a village of this size. I would expect your lagoons were constructed in 1960 something, and as far as I can tell, they've never been dredged. No one is aware of any dredging that's occurred in around 60 years.
I know that, my dad was there. And that's one reason that they went with what they have, because council turned my dad down at that time. There's probably not many here that remember that, but council said, no, we're not putting in the gravity, that's gonna cost us too much. Your dad said, you're gonna have to do something, cause they're gonna be after you, cause you're dumping, you're, yeah. Well, the, thing you put at your house, that everybody's supposed to fill in when we went to, the septic tank was they were being dumped into the, storm drains, and, you know, that's gross when you think about it, you know, really, you know, and so, you know, nope, this is what we're gonna do. And Dad said, okay, fine, you're gonna pay for it, and who's paying for it? Us. Our forefathers did not think about us. And you know what, like just what Jay said, we're trying to think about our future. You know, if you have children, families still living here, you're thinking about your future. And yes, it's all expensive, but you know, like, if anybody wants to really start, I guess if you wanna pay $5,000, we'll put this one system in and start with the little grinder at your home, and we can do that. You know, I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it, plus people haven't been nice.
Are you planning on, like you said, this one right here went down, the little crack, and you said you feel that the pits, some of them are broken? Those, you're planning on replacing them as you can, is that, because
I know that one's broken,
Yes.
I already ordered it.
yes. But I'm assuming that if you find another one somewhere along the line that, or an issue, you'll be fixing it as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we can't not.
Right, okay. So it'd be continuous repair until Wexler can get their numbers around and we can figure out what we need to go and where we need to go from there.
Yes, and I don't, just because that one collapsed doesn't mean that a bunch more are.
Right,
Granted,
right.
it doesn't mean they won't.
No.
All we can do is, unfortunately with what we have, is continue on as we see the problem.
Right.
That's why we're where we're at. We don't want this issue. I despise this system. I don't like it, I don't like fixing it, I don't like hearing the complaints about it, I don't like being out here 16 hours a day fixing it. We have other things we also need to do. We need to fix the roads. We need to clean up the park. We need to take care of some other things. And
Right.
I think part of the reason too we're getting behind on other things is because of this.
Right.
We spend so much time on this, we do tend to neglect other areas.
Now, am I wrong in thinking that if we do get a loan to go proceed with whatever we decide, then grants are out of the ballpark, is that right?
If you want to accelerate it, yes.
Then, because you're less likely to get a grant for that, is, right? Okay.
Yeah, but, so for like in Kenton, they need a new, I think it's their new water plant, right? And so you're gonna dump a bunch of money into the water plant to get it by for the next 15 years. But they're already in the process of planning what goes further, you know. You have a time period where it's temporary, right? So you're gonna have to put money in to make it temporary, but then you need to be thinking much further out.
Yes,
You know, into
but I
something
don't
that's a lot
see-
bigger.
finding out where they're coming from, how much and what everything is. Yes, we have to plan, that's obvious. But finding out what's going on and trying to get as much grant money as we can.
Yeah.
Because, let's face it, Forest cannot afford it. So, that's why I just want to make that clear, because if people are thinking, well, let's go get a loan right now, well, then your grants are out of, that you're just done with grants, because you're not gonna get them.
And again, that's why we wanna do this right.
Right.
This is not to be rushed. If we rush it, I'm afraid we're gonna be back here sitting talking like this again in 20 years. I'm sorry, actually do like this job, so I hope I'm here in 20 years. I don't wanna have this talk again, I'm sorry. I really don't, I don't like it.
And like they said, it's so outdated. Me, Dave, and Derek, we all went to school together. Most of the towns that have this system, they have a laptop that will tell them where the pit is, what's wrong with it. And we were, like, they have all this system, they have a call-out box that will tell you and everything. We don't have any indicators whatsoever.
And that's a lot
Because
more,
it's 20 years old.
and that's a lot more money
Over
too.
20 years old.
Yeah, most of them can afford it.
Well, you don't have to use that.
So for,
The system would be great above.
Well, are there any more questions then, or?
I do, I'm gonna say the bad word, cause I know Wessler's working on regionalization. Bigger,
Well, that's a fish to fry in another day.
see, I knew it was a bad word, but,
So why can't we talk about it?
yeah, I think it's something that when
We were
you're
talking-
when
we
you're
were
talking
talking
about a
about
long-term
regionalization of water, not
solution,
necessarily sewer.
No, we're talking about our sewer system, and regional sewer is an option.
and there's
Might
more
not be
grant
the
money out
best.
there.
But if we regionalize sewer, where's it going?
What do you mean?
Yeah, but
We-
your
we
bias,
have a lagoon that goes to a creek, so even if we regionalize sewer, that back plant still has to run. We still have to send that down the line.
but it's not your job to just make the decision for the citizens on what they want. You as your job as an administrator is to make sure that all of the options are available. And if
That's what they're gonna bring
regionalization,
to us. They're gonna bring us the option.
but if you're not asking for a regionalization option, then we can't bring
that
it.
in a little bit.
Okay, they can
As
answer.
part of the PER, the preliminary engineering report, which is what we're gonna be preparing, it is, the state of Ohio, it's actually, I think, written in the OAC, it's in the OEPA guidelines in order to go through that funding mechanism, which is approved by almost every other funding agency other than USDA, that's a federal funding arm. You have to include an option for regionalization.
Okay.
So we will be touching on that a little bit. You've mentioned Kenton. You guys are in a unique position on where you and Kenton reside. There is what we call like the ridge line of Ohio. It runs in between Kenton and Forest. If you are south of that line, everything flows down to the Ohio River. If you are north, it flows up to Lake Erie. We have checked with the OEPA, you cannot regionalize sewer with Kenton.
Right, no, I'm not talking about regionalizing
Yeah.
with Kenton,
Go
but
with Patterson.
an option, and I realize, Hardin County is very spread out. It's a very difficult thing to put regionalized anything because of how spread out it is. But to say that it's off the table right from the get-go is not fair.
Well,
So the only
I guess it depends, what way do you wanna go? Do we wanna be subject to another village, or do we wanna be the ones giving it?
I know, and you don't like the idea that somebody else is gonna set your rates, but you're gonna have there's a board that goes in to a situation like that. You will have representation. There's a lot more to it than just, well, I'm not gonna answer to somebody else.
It's not just that, cause I have looked into it, but again, do we wanna be the epicenter of this regionalization?
Well,
Do we
hasn't
wanna
worked
give
in
the
the past.
If you weren't
Patterson?
gonna even tell us that was an option, that's the problem.
We haven't made it that far.
Well,
You just shut down the whole conversation,
Yeah.
but you were willing to
I
talk
did
about
shut it
air,
down.
yeah.
yeah, you did, and then Dave did. That's not fair to us.
So cause we're
I mean,
talking about
it's just
sewer,
to
we
say,
just
hey, he's
put
also
in that
going
we
to
can't
research it,
do
right?
certain things. When it comes to sewer, but also we posted that it's about the back sewer system. We have an issue we have to address before we go anywhere else.
Well, that's fine, but you still talked about low pressure and gravity as well. You
Right.
could have said, we're also going to look into regional sewer and we can discuss that in 2 months. No, you don't like it, so you shut it down. That's not fair. If it's an option, because let me tell you, if people look into it, the money's there federally, it's their state, it's all over. They are pushing regional. I don't know that it's right for us, but we should be educated to be able to make the decision, or at least let you guys know how we feel when the whole council represents us.
And we
as
can have
citizens.
that conversation,
But you didn't want to, that's the problem, Jay. and
because
Jay
we've
didn't
been
want
here
to.
for an hour, and we were here to talk about the back and what we're doing with the
But you
back.
started talking about other options, that's the problem.
In regionalization, it would be compared against the lagoon improvements, not the collection. So I think what Jay's saying, The gravity low pressure AirVac system will need to be done regardless. So that's one decision that has to be done. The regionalization option would be compared against lagoon improvements versus a mechanical plant.
And you are going to do
and
that,
we
which
have
is
to as
perfect.
part of our report. And just to give you, again, we don't have numbers yet on that. The reasonable option is, let's just pump it to Kenton. You can't pump sewage to Kenton because the OEPA won't allow that crossing of the divide. Your only option, the only other community that can possibly take on this flow would be Upper Sandusky, which is, I think, about 12 miles away. So 12 miles is a lot of pipe, and you're talking about a big pump station.
Right.
So we don't know the numbers yet. We'll evaluate it. We will present that as an option alternative for the village, and from there it will be made public. We'll be back here discussing options for the treatment, regionalization, but then also options for the collection system.
And I don't know how it works with the sewer and the water, but it's like if you're regionalizing with another place, right? That it's like, can you also regionalize them with the water? Because the water is also another big issue. This is not just AirVac, this is quality of living in forest. So it's like if you do the one, are you capable of doing them both at the same time? Those kind of things that it's like, and that's where you have the bigger viewpoint.
The funding mechanisms are for water and wastewater are two completely different funding mechanisms for the state and for a lot of funding agencies. They are two completely different things. So if regionalization is a serious option, let's say you could, in theory, pump to Upper Sandusky, but also purchase water from Kenton. That is I believe Kenton uses groundwater, which would be in the same aquifer, so that is allowed. So you could have different, if that's again what the village wants to decide, but regionalization for drinking water is not a part of this job because it's a completely separate one.
Right, but it's that idea of, having it in your local wheelhouse hasn't necessarily worked. So the idea of going outside and to a bigger, more well-maintained facility is not a bad idea.
Like Jay was saying, the purpose of this meeting tonight was to explain to people about the VAC system and the focus on what the problems are, what we're doing to fix it. And that's a conversation to have for sure, but not tonight.
I have one question about this pipe right there. It's got a crack in it. Is there a way to isolate where you put gauges in there to see, to run it down to see your vacuum, where you lose your vacuum?
So the best way to track down one of these that we found during this process was we do have some working valves on this line. We were able to isolate it to the entirety of Patterson Street. And then upon that, we can take a gauge to the pits. Sometimes, so like with this specific incident, the pit before the crack and the pit after the crack actually had the same back.
Yeah.
So that didn't help me.
I mean, around, if you got point A, point B over here, you got one over here, run over here. If you got a lower vacuum here, it's gotta be in between.
Yeah, and with this time though, that did not present itself. The pit before this and after it had the same back.
Same back, okay.
But if I go to the end of the line.
I just wondered, it should have showed a low vacuum on that one right there.
Yeah, this was difficult to find. This took us primarily the last 3
But
4 years.
evidently it don't take much for that to shut that down then.
No, I mean, that's a tiny crack.
I know this was a tiny crack, but, I mean, if you got that, man, it must be awful close to, you don't have much ratio there where it's gonna shut it off, where it's not.
No, and actually, this pipe where we found this one, so it comes in, and then it actually comes up about 4 feet.
Yeah.
Within a 2-foot degree, so I don't know what the actual degree of that would be, but I mean, that's pretty steep.
I was just thinking, I mean, it'd be easy to isolate if you had somewhere where you could shut it off somewhere and check your vacuum.
Yeah, we were able to isolate it to one.
So you guys already know about that.
But with the gauge, that didn't work, we tried that.
I mean,
that's what they
just my
recommended.
question.
But of course, it didn't work.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah.
And again, I can only do what AirVac
exactly right.
tells me.
Of course, if it's sucking water stuff in there, it's not gonna drop it much. got a vacuum in there, it's gonna suck stuff in there, mud and stuff in it.
Yeah, rocks.
And it's not gonna show much,
Well, I think we've had a lot of good conversation and things like that tonight, some good information from the guys. Any last question before we close up?
I got one.
Yes.
Jay, I know we've talked before on the phone. Nice to meet you. I keep hearing that a lot of people have their gutter systems tied in to the drains. Why don't we go house to house and figure out which houses are doing that and put that to bed? If people have done that, that was on them. But that would take care of a big problem, correct?
Yes.
Dave, you need to look at that.
So, Ben, do you remember if we did find anything on the gravity side with that?
We did.
Okay.
You gotta remember, 20 years ago, you were a combined system. That means that all your sanitary and storm flowed into the same system for treatment. So a lot of these houses that have gutters tied in were legal 20 years ago. They're not legal anymore, but at the same time, how many of these homeowners realize, because I never even thought where my downspouts were going. Like I have a house, I actually just bought it just a couple months ago, I have no idea where my downspouts go. They go somewhere,
And
but
that's the point.
again,
A lot of people may not know.
correct.
Just doing
So
it.
for the gravity
I've got-
side,
I've got my, sump pump tied into the outside PVC that I thought was supposed to be going to the drain system, for stormwater. But do I know that for a fact? I have no clue.
So, with the gravity, it was a little easier for us to find, cause it's a more open system. I'll tell you right now, with this backside, best way to do it is either day by day and one house at a time, we drop some dye in and see if it ever shows up, or we dig. Again, I'm not getting a lot of help from the
Don't use red
manufacturer.
number 3.
Yeah. Really don't wanna do that part. So this is a lot harder to find those things. And I will say where we found this, we actually found an underground downspout. It was connected correctly because it went to the storm, but it sat right on top of this. So how many might be tied into this because they thought this was a storm? I don't know when any of this was put in, who was here, who did what. Maybe they missed it and thought it was something else. I couldn't tell you, but I do know we have seen some underground ones that lead to the storm, and that does lead to believe that there might be some that are tied directly to this because somebody made a mistake.
That's a good answer. You know, listen to everybody. We've got a problem. We've got a potential solution. Looks like we gotta wait and see, on these gentlemen to put together a package before we could even put, anything in for a grant, correct? So, right now, we gotta take it in steps, as I think Dave explained, and Jay, you also explained. There's not a whole lot can be done until certain things fall into place. So let's let them fall into place. I think to everybody here, there'll have to be a decision made, but once we get that information, then we can sit down and collectively, as a township, decide which is the best for us. And whether or not this is gonna be totally grant, whether there's gonna be an assessment on our utilities or what. At that point, we'll know better what's going on. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, and I do wanna let you know that we, as of right now, we kinda have a definitive long-term, that'll come with some options to it. But sorry, I'm really tired. But what we need to do is also try to work on the temporary until we can get to that point. We're also still looking for any other answers, you know, if, somebody comes out with a grant and says, hey, you know what, we can fund you $5 million if you go this route, or if you go this route. So until we hear things like that, I mean, we're open to anything. It's just so far, everything we've
Get
done.
John on the phone. We'll have her fixed like that. He's got big Band-Aids.
So far, this has been the best solution. And again, we wanna do it right. We don't wanna have this meeting again in 20 years.
Correct.
To tell you the truth, like in my opinion, since I've been here, Well, I think after we found that, I think we're gonna get it up pretty quick. I think it's just with that crack and that time of year, I just think it just went crack. But I'm pretty confident we'll have it up super shortly.
Looks like you guys are gonna be, busy. But, you know, good job, I know I talked to you. I called him laying down on the job several times.
In front of my house too.
But you guys do a great job, and I for one appreciate it, and I know the restraints you're under, so, let's let this time go by, and let's let, data be collected, and then we can go from there.
I got a quick question, I think. Did I hear that you have problems with freezing, which it seems like this thing was, and none of the lids are insulated? Is that what I heard?
So,
Basically none of them, is that?
according to the manufacturer, they are insulated because they are fiberglass.
So in other words, they're not.
And again, when I asked, how do I fix this? They sent me a pamphlet that says, buy our new insulated pit, buy our new controllers. They don't freeze. I highly doubt.
Here's the big thing.
So let me finish real quick. So I heard about the other equipment, the pumps and the oil, and whatever, $350 for a 5-gallon water. I assume that most of this stuff after 21 years is completely out of warranty. There really is no warranty unless you're buying new, like, I don't know how, if you buy a new, whatever you call the blue piece, the valve, that there's some warranty on that if you buy a new one and put it in, is there?
No.
Because if not, now is probably the time, in my opinion, to just say, we probably have a lot of smart people, I think there's some in this room, let's insulate the pits, screw AirVac, unless they're a sole source. If we can't get any parts for anything from anybody else, screw it, you need
It's
a
a
new
monopoly.
you need a new pump over in the pump house, buy it, put it in. I mean, that's just a thought.
Like, if they're not giving you service now, so
Yeah, the
what are you
customer
gonna
service
lose?
is so bad.
And especially, I mean, I've been here a few years, but not very many years, it seems like you can set your watch to it. It gets cold, my driveway heaves, there's probably stuff in the pits getting cold and freezing up, some condensation, that leads to other problems. I think if you just figured out how to insulate the pits, you might do well.
So I mean, obviously I know the way you can, like you insulate your house. With these pits, they say they're waterproof, they're not waterproof.
Right.
Water gets into them, so I guess I would be interested to see how we could go about insulating them in some way that water wouldn't be a big factor in it, or how to make sure it's waterproof, I guess. And then we have been looking for some of these parts, and I kid you not, I think AirVac made these just a millimeter off from any other thing. These are so specific.
They're smart.
That's how they get
Is it
you.
O-rings kind of stuff?
Yeah, they're O-rings. I mean, unless I can make one, I think they're very specific. I mean, I'd be more than happy if somebody brought me a bunch to see if I can match one up, but from what I've done, cause I don't wanna spend $75 for this bag when all I need is this little grounded in here. Well, then we've looked at a couple and they're just so specific, it's weird.
Second question, I think it might be quick, maybe not. I know that you mentioned it, other people have these systems and they've got the 2.0 version or whatever. There's technology in it where you can sit there and basically say, this pit isn't working right, and go fix it. Have you looked at what that would cost for us to do something like that? Just ballpark?
So I know before me with Sean Young, he looked into an alarm system that would put something in every pit. I believe that was $250,000, like $250,000.
Yeah,
I don't remember if it was for the
everything?
entire system or if it was just for one line. I don't remember that one.
I think it equated to $1,500 per pit to outfit it with those monitoring systems.
Yeah, so I think that would be about $250,000.
And that's just a light on top of the.
Yeah, that was
It's top of the lid, it's not something where you.
And that's not gonna
I
take
guess
it up.
what I'd offer is, it seems like if that kind of stuff's available and it's something we could do pretty easily with not an insane amount of money, like, tens of millions of dollars, if we're gonna wait a while for grant money, and it's a Band-Aid, yes, but that seems like that might be a transition to get us out to where we can make the bigger decisions, because, just a quick show of hands, how many people actually live on the AirVac system that are here tonight? I don't. And then, do all of you have horror stories? I mean, when I hear about it, I don't know, cause I'm not on this. I picture, I don't know how else to say this, but I picture turds floating in your living room. Is that?
I have a bathtub.
No?
Maybe that's how I picture it, but I'm a gravity, so I don't know.
Okay, well, I mean, I certainly hope not, but that's, I don't know.
But I think
Here's
that's
the one
because they
thing I
keep
do
up
know
with it.
about those lights, is every single controller we have, we would have to buy new ones. Because there's 2 ports on the back of those ones with lights. We had one down in the shop, I don't know where it's at. But those cords hook up to the controller, and that's what will trigger the light, so. And I bet you those controllers are more than these controllers, so.
And these current controllers to replace all pits would be $61,000, so.
And I bet
tack
those
on an
would be
extra
more.
$1 for each one, and that's, I mean, that still goes up. I mean,
Jay,
there's
how
plenty
hard
of
would it-
options, it's just which
Or
one's
is it
right.
even, feasible? Can those, barrels in the pit be easily pulled out? Or is that a major?
I will tell you in about 2 weeks when I do it for 1
Okay,
hour.
because we could pull them out and put some, liquid rubber compound around it, that'd be cheap, and that'd last 20 years on itself. And that's a cheap, easy fix.
Yeah, and I guess from like my standpoint is, can we do that? Probably. How long is it gonna take us? How much is it gonna cost us? And are we neglecting other things? Again.
Well, I'm looking at just a Band-Aid.
No, I get it, I just, because of how long we've been down because of this back, we have neglected other areas. And I mean, that's not fair to you guys. I'm trying really hard to do the best I can. We've got a couple grants we're waiting on to hear back for our roads. I'm really hoping we get 3 roads repaired, fully, completely repaved next year. I just gotta wait to hear back from it. I'm just trying to do everything and I wanna, but it seems like because of this system, my focus gets taken away, and that's just not fair to you guys, that's not fair to me, cause I'm on hour 13 right now, when, you know, either I could have been doing something else, or I could actually be seeing my kids right now, which I haven't.
Yeah, but this is-
Smash booger for Jay.
But what I think what these gentlemen are trying to express to you is the fact that they want to see options, right? Because you're talking about 3 years out, you know, if you do something grant-wide, you know, it may be even longer out. So, I mean, for you to blow them off and say, oh, yeah, you know, we're doing all the things and doing blah, 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 that is not, they're just saying, when the paper comes on the table, we want to see the options. What is the option to put an alarm system in, and how much is that gonna cost? Because you're still gonna be talking years down the road. So I don't know what this is that you have in your mind what you wanna see, but they're just asking for options, all the options. And I think that it behooves the council and everybody else to write these options down. I don't see anybody taking notes. Of course,
I've been taking notes the
have you?
whole day.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. But,
I mean, it's not that
but to
I'm
have
disregarding
these
any of
options
this.
and to
It's-
present them.
So again, we don't come to the options until we get to a problem. So the year before I came in, it was an issue, but they were able to get it up in a timely manner compared to what we did this year. So I come in, I'm like, okay, I see what you have. I get in the pits, I'm like, okay, it's not terrible, it's bad, but it's not terrible. Then we have this happen. This is by far the worst thing that could have happened in this entire system. I didn't plan for this because I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Because when I asked people, how do we do this? Because I mean, I made 1 million phone calls, I was on the phone all day, every day, while fixing these things. Nobody can give me answers. So yeah, we have to think outside the box. We don't have options till something presents itself that we now have to find a solution to.
Wessler, will that be in your paperwork?
As for the remote.
Yeah, something to make it more manageable.
Yes, yes.
Okay, we'll
We're
we'll
also
do.
evaluating that as well. Reached
Okay.
out to AirVac. They have not provided us any
Right.
pricing yet. But yes, the remote system for trying to, so when the canisters don't seal correctly, Yes, that remote system will just flash a light. They've got different stages. If you want cellular, they could probably send a cellular signal to Jay or his crew to say, hey, this pit, otherwise it could just be, there's different stages to that. All comes with a cost. The 250 number, that's what Sean told us when we first started years ago, or I'm sorry, last year when we first kind of got this process rolling. But yeah, so that stuff will be included.
Okay.
We have to prepare our alternative for AirVac around what the village wants, but also what AirVac recommends. They know their system better than we know it. You made a good point. You know, the warranties are over, the system's falling apart. Can we start looking at other pumps? I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you, yes, you could, but how does that affect AirVac? If they come in here and start,
like it,
they won't like
but
it.
screw them.
Exactly.
They kind of screwed us, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The worst thing that you don't want is Jay puts in a different pump, and if that pump has a certain computer to the panel, and now suddenly your system whole entirely, the central vac station locks up and says, nope, we don't recognize it, boom, everything shuts down, well, you're gonna have a whole lot bigger problem. Or AirVac comes out and goes, that's not our pump, we're out.
Yeah.
Right? And so those are the questions that Jay would need to kind of see through, but also as soon as you start going down that path, does AirVac's already minimal support become less? I can't answer that. I don't deal with AirVac's operation staff. I've met Matt. He seems like a very knowledgeable person, but again, that's a relationship between AirVac and the village that you would need to go through. But we're gonna look at all ways to how we can rehab it in the future, put in what kind of protocols do you need for maintenance of the valves, of all the pits, what is that gonna cost, it'll be in there.
But one really, I said every one of them was quick, I'm sorry. I just would like to say, this is gonna be however we skin the cat, big ticket item, money-wise. So my hope is that somehow the actual people of the village get a say. No offense to council, but it's not something that, you guys are gonna work on it. Lesser's gonna help with all that. The slaves continue to slave in the pits. Sorry about your luck. Thanks. And we all, the whole town gets a vote. Somehow it winds up on a ballot worded after all the discussions are over. However that's gonna look, I'm not sure, but that we actually get a say. Sort of like what happened with the swimming pool. You know, so that people have to buy in, and if you don't vote and you don't like what happens, sorry about your luck.
Well, I believe that's the whole point of the meeting tonight was, here's the issue that we've had for a few weeks, few days, here's what they're doing to try to fix it. These are the people that are trying to help us, and we're letting you know what's going on, and ask for your patience as we're trying to work through it. I live on the east side of Gormley. I live on the VAC system. My son just bought a house on the east side of Gormley also. So I know exactly. No, I don't have stuff floating in my house, but there are times that I can't flush. But we're just asking for patience. Here's what we have, here's what we know, which is very minimal at this time. So we're just trying to all work together for it and keep you informed of what's going on when we know.
And if everybody, like Jay said, or one of the guys said, if you have a problem, my little guy's called Luigi, he's in my tub. And then when Luigi starts working, oh, better call somebody, cause Luigi's working down there and something's going wrong. So that's what I call him, Luigi in the tub. And they come, they take care of it, they leave.
I mean, we care about you guys, I mean, we really do. And we have a work phone that we carry with us, me and Mark take turns with it. That phone rings constantly. Me and Mark try, Jay, Derek even, Dave, these are great people. And Dave has put more time with this VAC system. He's been right with us, giving us numbers, readings. Derek has been in every pit with me and Mark, Jay. We are trying. We don't want to see this happen to you guys, you know. Me and Mark take this pretty personal, you know. yeah, I mean, we put in long nights, long days. And I know you guys are frustrated, I'm sure of it. But me and Mark, you know, and the crew, everybody here, we're trying to keep you guys to where you can at least flush your damn toilet.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
We do.
I will say I can contest to this, cause once we hit hour 16, I've told them to go home. And these two right here have said, hell no, let's keep chugging along.
So, I mean,
I don't
that's-
like to start something and not finish it.
Well, folks, thank you for coming tonight, and, we will keep you informed.
Good job, guys.
I don't know.